Trains and Cthulhu and farms, oh my. It's a dumb start. Sup nerds, Tom here, going to talk about AuZtralia, which is a Cthulhu and train game. Now that's actually the way that it was kind of sold to me. They're like, ooh, it's trains and Cthulhu. Those are mixing two really weird themes, which is true. It also has like farms and stuff and military, so the themes in general are really weird blend and mesh, but the mechanics are actually really cool. So the long and short of this game is you're basically just starting off at the edge of the board and slowly moving in on the map, building trains and planting your farms down. But then there's a bunch of monsters, very Cthulhu, elder creatures. There's zombies and Shoggoths and whatever. The lore is, the lore is really weird. But all these monsters that are out here that could start, coming towards your farms and destroying your farms. So you need to buy military units to fight back. And those are the two main ways that you get points are farms and fighting the monsters. There's also these phosphate, I think they're called, that are sometimes these are placed on the map. So you want to head towards them and pick them up for points. So to call it a train game is accurate. I mean, I guess you're just spreading out across the map and you're planting down your farms. And I mean, the farms are almost more significant than the trains in a way. I guess just like thematically, I don't really feel like the trains are the biggest part thematically. I think it's more, I'm building my towns and cities, I'm building my stuff, which is my farms, really. Just to me, like thematically, I don't really feel the trains are like super prevalent. Like when I'm playing this game, I'm not like, ooh, this is definitely a train game. Like, I'm a conductor, woo woo. I feel like it's more about I'm building my stuff, which is my farms, like in any other game that could be towns and cities, and I'm protecting it. I'm going out, you're either going out to fight the monsters and kill them, or you're just making sure that the monsters don't come and destroy your farms. Because if they become blighted and they flip over, they're not worth points anymore. So that's mostly what it feels like is build your stuff, which is your farms. You build trains to get around the board, and then there's monsters that you need to kill or need to just, make sure that they don't kill your stuff. So you either go hunting or you're protective. But in terms of specific mechanics, some of the things that are really cool is that this game uses a time track. So along this whole edge of the board here, there's all these, this numbers. It's a one-way time track. That's how you spend your turns. Whoever's in the back of the time track will spend units of time as their actions. And some actions are 1 unit of time, some are 2, and some are 3. I think 3 is the max. Furthermore, Cthulhu is also on the board, so he kind of activates the monsters and does stuff. So it's really cool to have this AI player kind of controlling the monsters and doing bad stuff for everybody. So it's kind of co-op, but kind of not. Like, we all want to kill the monsters. So sometimes we can even band together to attack the same monster and split the points. And there's a way that you can play it cooperatively, which I actually haven't done because the non-co-op mode is really, it doesn't feel like that different. You know what I mean? It's just like, you're doing your thing, you're doing your thing, you're doing your thing. So we're all, trying to build the best farms, I guess, and get the most points while not getting destroyed. And now nobody can really send monsters over to you per se, right? So it doesn't feel like direct conflict. It's more like we're all just doing our thing. And then, hey, if the monsters start coming towards your area and my area, like we have like a vested interest in both fighting this monster, we can go push them back off. But I do really like the time track. I think that's probably one of my favorite things is it's relatively unique. One of my buddies who also really liked the time track was saying that he found it, he'd seen it before in the game Dragon and Flagon, which actually I haven't played, but I saw it before in the game Infamous, which was later changed to Maniacal by Eagle Griffin, that was on Kickstarter. Playing that prototype, it had the same type of thing. And I just think that's a really cool, underutilized mechanic in games in order for people to, so you're at the last here, you can just spend a little bit of time just so you're back like in the clump of players and then you'll go again. But if you spend a bunch of time and you do it wisely, then you like jump all the way to the head of the clump over here. Like, oh, I have a way that I can actually spend like 5 time where, I have a baller turn, but I jump all the way up ahead and now I have to wait for everybody else to use like the same amount of time such that I'm now at the back. So there's like a risk reward kind of there. Maybe you don't want to have just a real baller turn where you jump ahead and you want to kind of spread the time out. The other mechanic that's pretty cool is you have these player boards, and with all your actions listed on them, and how you choose the actions that you're going to do is you have all these little action cubes, and you place them on the little action square and saying, I'm going to do that action. They also say how much time they take, which is, a good reminder. It's like a player aid and a player board at the same time. But like if I'm going to take this action and then I want to take that action again, I need to pay 1 gold for every cube that's already there. So the first time, it's free. The second time I have to pay a gold. The third time I have to pay 2 gold, and so on. So I really think that is a good mechanic. Well, there's an action which is to clear your board, but that takes time. So it's a really cool mechanic of like, yeah, you can do the same thing over and over and over again, but it's going to cost you more and more every single time. Maybe you might want to take, just a little bit to wipe the whole board. Well, this is a pretty big game. It's relatively meaty. It's not, one of the biggest games. You can get it after like 2 or 3 turns. There are obviously a lot more things that I'm mentioning here. There are a bunch of these character cards that are laid out that can help you, give you special abilities and static bonuses and stuff, and one-time use abilities. There's this deck of like event cards that'll get worse and worse as the game goes on and just do kind of bad stuff for everybody, start activating monsters and stuff just to get the game rolling. If everybody is just being nice and on this part of the map, they're like, eventually we're like, hey, come on, these guys are going to start activating and coming your way because stuff's got to go down. Also, you have a lot of fights. Again, not with other players, but with the AI monster characters on the board. It's a pretty big part of the game, and buying units is a pretty big thing that you have to do a lot of. Got to get a different mix of units because some are better against some monsters than others, and there's a whole chart. I got it right here. There's a whole chart here that says, infantry is poor against Cthulhu and Shoggoth, but good against Migo and Zombie, and airships are average against most things. So you have to look at this and look at what's flipped out on the board. Most of them, they're all face down at first, so most of the time you're just guessing at first, but as things start flipping out, you're going to want to buy your units based off of what you see out here. But that does kind of lead into my first complaint of the game, and probably my biggest complaint, is the way that you battle is a little lame. There's no dice or anything. You just flip over a card from this deck, and it has like a chart of the monster you're fighting and the units you have up against it. Oh, if you have an infantry, you'll do 1 damage to it. And if you have an artillery, you'll do a damage to it, but he's going to do a damage back to you, or he'll do a damage to one of your airships, or you'll lose a sanity. It's different, and it's innovative type of thing. I mean, that's cool. I'm glad that they're doing something new, but it just felt kind of boring. I don't know, flipping up a card and it just telling me what happens isn't as cool to me as rolling dice. And I know that's just silly. And again, it being different is cool. Combat is the same, is used with dice a lot in games. But for me, since I like it, it kind of feels like a if it ain't broke, don't fix it type of thing. Like, I don't know, I would have rather had dice that had this, a lot of this information that's on the card could have been split up onto dice that you roll. But the cards also, they serve multi-functions because these cards are both for combat and for activating monsters, saying who moves and which direction they move. Well, actually, they always move towards the closest farm, but if there is a discrepancy and there's 2 farms that are equidistant from this monster, it'll say which direction it goes, which actually the very first time I played, I royally screwed that up. I thought it was, this just says the direction that the monster goes. So a lot of the times, it made the monsters go backwards. It made the monsters go this way. Which just felt like they were retreating, which means there was a lot less combat than there normally is in a game, and we had to like rush towards them and fight. Like, hey, come on, we want to fight you. Come on, we're coming towards you. And at first I was like, I get it because Cthulhu is actually like a player at the end, and he has a score based off of how many of his monsters don't get killed that remain on the board. So you are incentivized to go for them, and they are in theory incentivized to back off. But playing it again, I realized, yeah, that's definitely wrong. A lot more stuff happens when they come towards you, and you have to, run head first into the fight, and that's a lot more fun. You definitely want to have a lot of fights. Even though I don't love the card combat system, you definitely want to have a lot of stuff happen in this game to make it really interesting. So while the card combat thing is my biggest negative, my other negative is that the game is a little bit long. Now, I've played a lot of big games that take a long time because a lot is going on. And while I said that this game is really simple, and it is, by your third turn, you pretty much got it. At least, if you're a relatively experienced gamer, you're going to get it pretty quickly. And it just felt, because of the way the time track worked. Now, again, I still think the time track is a very innovative mechanic, and it's cool and it's interesting. But by virtue of splitting up between like 1, 2, and 3, is the possible units of time for the actions, it like I had to take a lot of actions to get stuff done. Like to gather resources and to pick up cards and to lay down tracks and then lay down farms and then, you know, move my unit and get more units. And like, it felt like an awful lot of bookkeeping, like necessary bookkeeping. I don't know how you could cut that down anymore. Like you need that variability in the different actions. They need to be 1, 2, or 3 time. So that way you really feel like you're making choices and it's not just one time for everything, right? And by doing that 3 time needs to be, it can't be such a huge percentage. It can't be, there's only, you know, 20 time in the whole game, because 3 time for one action, you're going to be like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. So again, as you see, this track goes all the way up to 55 down here, you know, so it can be a long game. Now, when everybody knows what they're doing, turns can go fast. It's supposed to be just drop a cube. Okay, I'm doing this, go, you know, and it does work out that way a little bit, but every time you add a new player and they have a little bit of analysis paralysis, it can feel like the game takes a long time, especially because it takes a little while to get going. Like this whole first, Cthulhu doesn't even show up until here. So all this time right here, it's just a lot of gathering resources, placing your tracks, placing your farms, getting military, you know, then the action sort of starts. You know, this is Bilbo's birthday here, and then boom, they found the ring. Other than those 2 complaints, though, about the card combat system and the length of the game was a little bit long, honestly, I really didn't have any other problems with this game. I really enjoyed it. Now, it's not Game of the Year. I didn't love it. Actually, some of the other people I was playing with liked it a lot more than I did, but I definitely did enjoy it. Definitely will play it again. It's very unique, very straightforward. You know, if there were dice in the game, I probably would like it a little bit better. If they come out with a dice expansion that kind of either, well, it doesn't need to replace this, or I guess maybe you could have dice for the movement as well or something, but whatever. That notwithstanding, you know, I did enjoy the game, didn't love it, but liked it. Definitely a solid game for those people who really want, and I guess the length of time issue is more kind of setting a precedent that you're going to settle into this game and really, really take your time with it. But like all of this planning and stuff that you do means that you're gearing up to play the game right. You know what I mean? You're not making willy-nilly choices. You're like, no, I'm making sure that I'm getting all the resources I need and all the military that I need, and then I'm going to go out and fight. You're not going to be, you know, fighting and trying to get resources and trying to get your military, and everything's kind of hodgepodge and it's just kind of wacky craziness. There's a lot of planning involved in this game. So for people who like that type of stuff, of being really strategic and planning out everything you're going to do before you go and do it, then you guys probably won't have a problem with the length of the game. Well, like I said before, I really enjoyed this game. Didn't love it, but really liked it. Definitely going to keep it. Excited to play it again. And if any of what I was talking about in this video sounds interesting to you, I'm going to put a purchase link to this game in the description box down below. And while you're down there, of course, subscribe to our channel so you'll never be bored.